Hello everybody, welcome along to this video. This is Mr. Johnson Teaches Macbeth, the context with the disruption of nature. It's a theme that runs through the play. It's also one that I would say as a teacher, I certainly don't think I've explored enough, and I don't really see other people exploring all the time, but actually it really does, as I say, run through the play and certainly become a theme, and actually a really important one. So I want to explore that one with you today. A quick reminder that as you're watching this video, it's super important that you have pen and paper ready and are making notes somewhere. It gives you something to refer back to, something to revise from, and you're much more likely to remember the different bits of information you come across in this video if you're writing notes and pausing the video as you go along. And there's some questions at the end to test yourself on as well. Just a reminder, Macbeth is part of your English Literature GCSE. It's part of Paper 1 and it's Section A of Paper 1, and that therefore is the first English exam that you actually sit when it comes to your GCSEs. So without further ado, let's move on inside the video. And just a quick reminder that what we're doing here is we're actually covering AO3, Assessment Objective 3. There are 4 assessment objectives when it comes to your Literature GCSEs. The third one, as it says there, is context. So basically what you're doing by exploring things like the power of nature, say, and disturbed nature, what you're doing is you're showing an understanding of how the time and events of 1606 affect how the audience viewed it. And that's what we're trying to do today, is like link it back to Shakespeare and link what we are saying here back to the audience who would have been watching Macbeth at the time. So here we go then. Quick note about the Jacobean audience. What you see in the picture behind the text there is actually the modern Globe Theatre, with certainly fewer people in it. There could have been up to about 3,000 people at a time in the original Globe Theatre. But let's talk about the Jacobean audience. That is the name we give to the audience of the time watching Macbeth. When Queen Elizabeth was on the throne, it was the Elizabethan audience. When King James comes to the throne, and he is the king at the time that Macbeth is played and performed, they are the Jacobean audience, and things you must note down somewhere. They were much more superstitious than us these days. They lacked the science to be able to explain the strange events that were going on around them in the world. Not only, but things perhaps like eclipses, for example, lunar eclipses, solar eclipses. These were all seen as signs from heavens, from God. Sort of great plagues when food was not there, or when, for example, there were really great storms. All of these things were seen as a reflection of God's mood and sort of the feelings of God, and maybe as a punishment for something that people had been doing on earth. So again, superstition is the word there, sort of leading the natural world and sort of making conclusions from it without having the science to explain it. So my second bullet point there would have viewed the natural world as a reflection of God, and as I said, God's mood. So bear those things in mind, because actually they are really important when you see what happens within the play. So my first thing is, where can we see nature being disrupted in the play? What I'd like to do is talk you through a few key moments in the play where there are quotes that you could note down, certainly scenes as well, which you can go back to and have a look at. I've created videos for all the scenes in the play that you could go back and revise, but these are some key moments. And what I want you to do really is think about the links that these have with the Macbeth's actions. So what the Macbeths do lead to nature being disrupted. And here we go. First thing though is actually nothing to do with the Macbeths. It's the only one which really isn't, but it's the witches. I've put in brackets there, and you'll see these brackets on my other slides. 1-1, what that means is that's Act 1, Scene 1, Act 1, Scene 3, Act 3, Scene 5, and so on. Those are the appearances of the witches there. They're described as the instruments of darkness, but how they link with disturbed nature is whenever they enter, there's thunder and lightning is the stage direction, and that in itself is almost seen as a disturbed nature being unhappy with something. And the fact that thunder and lightning and storms, I put there, it links with like them being unpredictable in the same way that a storm is unpredictable, but it also creates like this threatening and dangerous tone, a bit like the idea of lightning being dangerous as well. I also put at the bottom there the fact that they are summoning up evil natural elements. They always call upon crows, lizards, frogs. There are numerous other ones as well. Most of them have got really negative connotations or negative associations that we associate them with bad and evil things. So the witches would be your first thing that you could talk about with nature. And Lady Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 5 is a really key one as well. She calls upon and draws upon dark things as well. Like she says, "Come, ye spirits, come, thick night." She also talks about the blanket of dark. So she's talking about nature, but a darker side of nature. And in fact, as I've put on that last bullet point at the bottom there, she's invoking, like calling up darkness, like, but it's in the opposition to light being something we associate with heaven. So in many ways what she is doing is consorting with, like, working with hell. And consorting with hell is a really good phrase to try and get yourself comfortable with using, because it would be a really good one to drop into some of your writing when you're doing your GCSEs or in classwork as well. That's a great photo, by the way, as well. Look at all the bloody looking fruit, and it isn't blood, but it looks like it. Talking about Banquo as well, this is a really brief reference, but actually I think it's one that gets overlooked too often. It's Act 2, Scene 1. This is the scene which is when Macbeth comes on shortly after this, and then he visualises the dagger when he's alone on stage, and then at the end of this scene he goes off to murder the king. Before he comes on, Banquo and Fleance, who's Banquo's son, are there, and they're sort of just out after the big banquet, and Banquo says those two quotes. He says, "There's husbandry in heaven, their candles are all out." Because it's meant to be midnight, and yet husbandry means something bad, something unsettled going on, because there are no stars. And this, as I put at the bottom, is almost foreshadowing the evil deeds that are about to happen. It's almost like nature has gone into hiding. It's a sign that bad things are about to happen. When unnatural things start happening, you know things aren't right, that the balance of nature has been upset. Things aren't as they should be. I can't say that in too many more ways without repeating myself, but hopefully you're getting the point. This is the first time when nature really starts to seem unbalanced, and that's a good phrase to try and use and note down somewhere. He also talks in that second bullet point about "a heavy summons lies like lead upon me, and yet I would not sleep." Like he's needing sleep, and yet these nightmares and these things just make him not want to go to sleep. It almost means he can't sleep. And again, it's like foreshadowing. Straight after the murder of the king, we have Act 2, Scene 2, and these are two moments really I wanted to talk about. I've put at the top there, it's like a lack of sleep is one thing linked with nature, but also he isn't able to get a blessing, Macbeth. The first bullet point, he talks about going to murder the king, and then he says about having, "I had most need of a blessing," like a sign from God, like sort of communication with God, and "amen stuck in my throat," is what he says. It's almost like he can't get the words out. It feels like his connection to God has started to be cut, or severed would be a really nice word to use there as well. He then goes on to talk about as well, he sort of feels really upset. He says, "Sleep no more, Macbeth does murder sleep," and then shortly after that he goes, "Macbeth shall sleep no more." It's almost though, and actually I'm going to move on to the next point down, where actually he talks to his wife later on in Act 3, Scene 2 about these terrible dreams that shake us nightly, almost like they're being plagued and being sort of overrun with nightmares. That means they haven't slept and since the murder of the king. And I put at the bottom there, my explanation for this, and the words I think you would want to try and use, is it's almost like this is their punishment for disturbing nature, is their loss of natural rest, sleep. Sleep is a natural process. It's a natural way that we end the day. It's a natural way that we refresh our minds. And the fact that the Macbeths are unable to sleep anymore is almost like nature is against them. Nature has cut them off. They have done something unnatural, so therefore they are losing something natural themselves. And it goes on to cause really bad things for them as well. Think about Lady Macbeth and her fact that she is unable to sleep. She goes sleepwalking, seeing blood on her hands. It's almost like this is all a consequence of her lack of sleep. And generally, nature after the king's murder, and this is more of a direct explanation, but there are references to nature. For example, in Act 2, Scene 3 and Act 2, Scene 4, 2-3 is where the king's murder is discovered by everybody in Macbeth's castle. 2-4 is like the scene after that. And it talks about our chimneys were all blown down last night. This is the night of the murder of the king. There's like this great storm. Lamentings are like sad cries, like lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death. It's almost like nature is being personified there. It would be a really good phrase to use as well, the personification of nature, but also like the dark personification of nature. Later on, there's a quote where, "By the clock it is day," so it's meant to be daytime, and yet the night strangles the travelling lamp being the sun. It's almost like the sun is being strangled by nighttime, like bad, evil things are taking over the world. all of this mirroring the evil deeds that the Macbeths have carried out. So at the bottom there, I've tried to phrase it for you. It's like the pathetic fallacy is reflecting the disruption of nature, which is because the divine right of kings has been broken. Now, a quick reminder, I've got another video on this you can go back and watch if you don't really know what I'm talking about. But the divine right of kings is the belief that God has chosen who is going to be king. And if you are to murder a king, then you're almost going against God's choice of who the king should be. So going against God's teachings. So let's try and summarise all that into a few key points then. So what is Shakespeare's actual message? What is he trying to show us through this? And I've quoted at the top of that bullet point. That is a quote from the Doctor when he sees Lady Macbeth sleepwalking. He says, "Unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles." The unnatural troubles are like the consequences Macbeth are facing, the lack of sleep that they are having, and it's all come from their unnatural deeds. Murdering the king, murdering anybody, but particularly murdering the king, which is regicide, is an unnatural deed. Therefore, the middle bullet point I think is really key. Our actions have consequences, and you can see those consequences reflected in nature. An unnatural murder leads to nature being unsettled. And I've put at the bottom there, those who defy God's teachings will be punished. Surely has got to be the message of this. You see the punishment that falls upon the Macbeths. They go against the chain of being. They try and break out of their place in the great chain. They also break against the divine right of kings. And ultimately, their punishment is, throughout the play, we see them losing their minds. They're becoming more unsettled. They're becoming more paranoid. But also, ultimately, both the characters die, and that is the punishment that is ultimately given to them for what they have chosen to do. So this is how you can test yourself. All of the answers for those questions are found in the video that I've just done for you. Have a go at them. Write down your answers somewhere. And if you're really uncertain, you can go back and find those answers at various points in the video. All that remains for me to say is thank you for watching this video all the way through. I hope you found it useful. There are many other videos on my channel now. They're growing always, that you can go and watch and find some more information about Macbeth. And ultimately it leads me to say, I wish you the very best of luck when it comes to your exams. Don't just try and drop things like this in without trying to link them to Shakespeare's message. If you link the idea to what Shakespeare is trying to teach us, and that's a phrase you could use, perhaps Shakespeare is trying to teach us that, then you're likely to gain yourself high marks. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and goodbye.